Think about the last time you scrolled through your social media feed. Hundreds of photos, hundreds of faces, hundreds of carefully chosen moments, filtered and captioned and offered up to the world for approval. Now think about someone you know who is completely absent from all of it. No photos, no updates, no stories. Maybe they have an account. Maybe they don't even have that. And when you ask them why, they give you some quiet, almost unbothered version of the same answer. It's just not really my thing. I prefer to keep things private. And you nod. But somewhere in the back of your mind, a question lingers. What do they actually know that the rest of us don't? Because here's what the psychology reveals, and this might genuinely surprise you. The person who doesn't post isn't simply indifferent to social media. They are operating from a completely different psychological framework. And once you understand what that framework looks like from the inside, it might make you see your own relationship with your phone in a way you never have before. Let's start with what social media posting is actually doing to us at a psychological level, because most people believe they post to share memories, to stay connected, to document their lives. And on the surface, that's true. But research tells a far more complicated story underneath that surface. A study published in the journal Computers and Human Behavior found that one of the primary drivers behind social media posting is something psychologists call impression management, the deeply human need to control how other people perceive us. Every photo we post, every caption we write, every story we share is in some way a carefully constructed signal to the world. A signal that says, this is who I am. This is what my life looks like. This is how I want you to see me. We are not just sharing moments. We are building and protecting an identity. And we are quietly waiting for something in return. Validation, relevance, connection, proof that we exist, and that our existence actually matters to other people. When you understand that, the person who refuses to participate in that system stops looking strange. They start looking like someone who figured something out early. So who are these people really? The psychology points to several distinct profiles, and they are far more different from each other than you might expect. The first profile is someone with what researchers call a high need for privacy and autonomy. For these people, posting a photo doesn't feel like sharing. It feels like exposure. It feels like handing something intimate and personal over to an audience that hasn't earned the right to see it. These are often people with a strong, stable internal sense of self. They know what happened on their vacation. They were there. They felt it. They don't need 300 likes to confirm that the experience was real or meaningful. Their identity doesn't depend on an audience, and that quiet independence is something most of us have never fully developed because we were never pushed to. The second profile is less about confidence and more about fear, and this one is far more common than most people are willing to admit. For many non-posters, it's not that they don't want to share. It's that the vulnerability of sharing feels genuinely threatening to them. What if nobody responds? What if the post gets ignored? What if people judge the photo, the location, the life? The possibility of public rejection, even in its mildest digital form, a post that lands in silence, is enough to keep them permanently on the sidelines. So they watch, they scroll, they consume everything but contribute nothing. Because contributing means being seen, and being seen means being evaluated. And somewhere in their nervous system, that risk simply isn't worth taking. This profile isn't weakness. It's actually a very honest response to something that most of us prefer not to look at directly. That social media is, at its core, a stage, and not everyone was built to perform. The third profile is perhaps the most psychologically interesting of all. These are people who have developed what researchers call autonomy from external validation. Studies rooted in self-determination theory show that human beings have three core psychological needs: competence, connection, and autonomy. Most people who post regularly are meeting their need for connection and competence through their online presence, through the feedback, through the engagement, through the feeling of being seen and responded to. But people in this third group have found ways to meet all three of those needs entirely offline, through deep, real relationships, through meaningful work, through a stable internal identity that doesn't require an audience to feel solid. They are not absent from social media because something is broken in them. They are absent because they have found something more sustaining than likes. And that is genuinely rare. Now, here's the part that the research makes impossible to ignore, and this is worth sitting with for a moment. A landmark study from the University of Pennsylvania found that reducing social media use to just 10 minutes per day led to significant reductions in loneliness and depression. not eliminating it entirely, just reducing it to 10 minutes. Another study found that passive social media consumption, the scrolling, the watching, the comparing, was consistently linked to lower overall well being, higher rates of envy, and a distorted sense of how other people's lives actually look. The people who don't post are also, in most cases, not endlessly consuming either. And that absence of constant, relentless comparison quietly protects their mental health in ways they may not even consciously realize. Here's the thing that no one really says out loud, but that the data keeps pointing toward. In a world where the pressure to perform your life online has never been greater, where people photograph their food before tasting it, where travel is planned around photo opportunities, where moments are increasingly experienced through a screen rather than through the actual senses, choosing not to post has quietly become one of the most radical acts of psychological self-preservation that a person can make. It is saying, "This moment belongs to me. I don't need to share it to make it real. I don't need an audience to confirm that my life has value, and I am secure enough in myself that your silence won't shake me." The people who don't post on social media are not missing out on something. In many ways, and the research genuinely supports this, they have already figured out something that the rest of us are still in the middle of learning. That a life lived fully, deeply, and honestly does not need to be seen to matter. And maybe the most important question this raises isn't about them at all. Maybe it's about us, about why we still feel like it does.